In 2018, a game called Starfield was announced. It looked to be massive and the game was highly anticipated by the community. Delayed not once but twice, Starfield finally hit the shelves in 2023, but the game released to mediocre reviews. It was full of bugs and loading screens, and it simply fell short of expectations. It was clear Starfield was no competitor to the classic space exploration game No Man's Sky, which does have a comeback story, so maybe that's a sign. But Starfield has been out almost 2 years now, so has Bethesda fixed the game and converted it from a buggy mess to an enjoyable experience? Well, without further ado, let's get into it. There's no doubt in saying that Starfield has certainly improved since launch. Compared to launch day, there have been bugs fixed, free updates as well as DLC. One noticeable addition is the Rev 8, a buggy that allows players to get around planets. This is certainly called for, as walking to get almost anywhere that doesn't allow fast travel is simply annoying. I wanted a space simulator, not a walking simulator. Combat, however, is probably my favourite part of the game. Starfield has a massive number of weapons that play in significantly different ways. While the AI is absolutely stupid, they certainly pose a challenge in the right setting. But sometimes the fighting feels tedious, as you try to make your way through a cave with 10 bullets, a pistol, and what feels like hundreds of enemies shooting at you from each side. However, this fighting could be avoided easily by using the persuasion mechanic. Persuading people can save you time and effort and really adds a dynamic element to the game. Instead of paying them 10,000 credits, you can persuade them to give up the hostage instead. This means that no playthrough is the same, and maybe, just maybe, you can persuade them to give up the hostage before quickly turning and shooting your enemy in the head. The endless possibilities Starfield offers, whether that's being a good guy, a bad guy, or something in between, is purely amazing. There are a range of different ways to make money, such as following the main story, looting, or stealing people's ships. While it might not quite be GTA in space, it certainly offers a paradise for those who want to bring chaos. The game has many factions, ranging from the Varun to the Constellation, which all have their own unique lore and backstory. These factions all have some kind of side quests, whether that's with or against them, so you'll never have nothing to do in Starfield. One of the most interesting mechanics in the game is affection. Things you say or do will affect dialogue options with the characters, and if you get certain characters to like you enough, you may be able to create a romantic interest with them. While the benefits of marriage are minimal, choosing the character as a companion, which doesn't require romance, allows you to take them with you on missions. This means they can help you in combat as well as provide extra space to carry things around. As you get to know these characters more, you'll realize just how deep the characters can be. They each have radically different personalities, and some random characters that you might find sitting around could even have some interesting quirks of their own. This amount of detail is what makes Starfield feel so interesting. Sadly, however, this doesn't apply to the planets. Well, yes, go pretty much anywhere in real space and you might not find much more beyond a barren wasteland. But maybe in a Starfield-like universe, you'd find something special, like a leftover space buggy or a crashed ship. Starfield does have some interesting things on its less traveled planets, but beyond an abandoned or not research outpost, these details are pretty rare, and the lifeless planets all feel pretty much the same. On top of this, even populated worlds can feel like mini-maps rather than an actual open-world experience. Most Starfield planets have a city or outpost and nothing more, meaning there'd be no purpose going beyond these locations. It almost feels like you're playing Jedi Survivor, where the game environment consists of many small, locked-off locations across different worlds. Of course, if you wanted to, you could go beyond the settlements and venture into the world of Starfield. But why? The cities in the game feel almost as bland as the worlds, as the lifeless NPCs walk around and don't have a care in the world. Fire a gunshot? No reaction. Set off a bomb? Well, don't try that if you're trying to be on the good side of the police. The point is, play Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead and almost every NPC has something different about them. You can interact with them and they will have some kind of reaction back. There are randomized events from gangs to bad drivers and this makes the world feel somewhat alive. In Starfield though, these randomized events practically never happen, especially within cities. The game's NPCs may let out an occasional chatter or ask you to help them with a quest, but for the most part, they don't have much individuality or realism. Of course, as we said above, there are many characters in the game that have depth and story. However, the lifeless NPCs that walk around in cities merely feel like objects to fill in their dead space. The fact you must walk most places, especially early game, doesn't help the game's case. Needing to walk for what feels like an hour to get to an outpost that doesn't allow fast travel certainly gets tiring. Luckily though, as mentioned before, there is a space buggy you can purchase from a technician when you have enough credits. However, until then, most missions shouldn't require too much distance travelled on planets, and if need be, many locations do allow fast travel via ships. While ships are a core aspect of any space game, in Starfield they merely feel like a portal that allows quick travel between locations. There are space battles, however they aren't super interesting and are usually bland and boring. During my playthrough, I spent most of my time on land rather than in space, and the only time I really did venture up was when the game told me to. However, one of my favourite parts of the game was the ability to commandeer enemy ships, which can be a fun and great way to replace the starter ship early game when you don't have a ton of money. Starfield's main story puts you in Constellation as you go after a series of artifacts. The story is not incredibly interesting and gets repetitive after a while. Also, the location the game drops you in are very similar, especially early game. But the more you play Starfield, the more interesting it gets, so sometimes you just have to push on through the bland and boring story content to get to the good part. I have never been one to love the loading screen nor despise it. Hogwarts Legacy was an acceptable example of how a large game could implement loading screens, allowing players to enter detailed sections of the map without too much interruption. Starfield does not hold back on these screens and will take every chance it gets to throw a looping circle in your face. While I can understand the loading screens in between planets and space, even docking your ship requires a cutscene and a loading screen. Entering your ship requires a load, and even some buildings require a loading screen to enter. Let's just hope Bethesda doesn't sell Starfield to EA anytime soon, who would likely attempt to insert ads while loading. The character models in the game are ugly and honestly borderline creepy. They look like they belong in the deepest crevice of Uncanny Valley. The facial expressions of the characters can be weird, but if that doesn't make you too uncomfortable, you should be alright. They're not that bad. The UI in the game isn't the best either, and the inventory management is painstaking. While the UI certainly looks good, the menus can be overwhelming and unintuitive. Most of the time, I try to avoid the game menus, but with the only way to quickly get from A to B via the planetary map, this is usually impossible. So, should you play Starfield in 2025? Starfield is not a bad game, and it contains many elements that make it unique and enjoyable. However, on the other hand, it is certainly not a great game, and it contains many elements that let it down. The game has an awesome combat system that is difficult and rewarding, and the characters in the game have depth and are enjoyable to interact with. Starfield is a huge game which lets you play however you want, and with an infinite number of things to do, you'll never be bored. While Starfield is an open world game, the lack of detail beyond places that are populated gives the illusion that the game has multiple smaller maps rather than one seamless open world. While travelling further than an outpost or city is possible, why would you, as there's likely nothing there? There is space travel in the game, but more often than not, the ships feel like fast travel portals rather than a vehicle. On top of this, the game's main story, especially early game, is repetitive and frankly boring, and the further you get sucked into the game, the more you'll enjoy it. The game is hard to recommend, as it is certainly fun to play, but at the same time, it feels fundamentally flawed. The best thing I can say is that if you like the look of the game and aren't looking for a No Man's Sky-like experience, Starfield will likely be an enjoyable game for you. Starfield is not No Man's Sky, as it focuses on combat, story, and characters rather than exploration. If No Man's Sky is up there with your favourite games, Starfield might not be for you. Either way, do some research and watch some gameplay videos before you buy it, and if you like the look of it, pull the trigger. If you're a little bit skeptical, waiting for a sale might be the way to go, as the game does have a fairly steep asking price. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.